I guess the one thing we haven't really talked about is, we brought up Legion. We haven't talked about this crazy, scheme that Rapp and Kennedy come up with to find and ultimately flip Legion. The basic of it is they decide to recruit Claudia lookalike in Sadie and have BB Kincaid. Again, Sadie and BB are two callbacks,
Yes.
characters, these quirky characters that Kyle has, bringing them back. Going back to South Africa, they're gonna redo the house with the hopes that, all right, they can essentially use Sadie as bait, leaving a Claudia, in quotes, out there and be able to get him. And the whole time I'm thinking, the one thing I did like about it was this idea of like, how the hell are they going to be able to figure it out? Like it was almost like a murder mystery, and then once we get that reveal of them going to the hospital, Rapp gets them, and then Rapp has, I forget her name, the one of the trio, the assassin,
Sierra, yeah,
Sierra, and she's like, "How did you do it?" And then he lays it out like I don't know, like a Knives Out type ending, or what is it? Poirot. What's the
Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Hercule
Poirot. Yeah.
Yeah. Laying it out. Or Sherlock, very Sherlock Holmesian, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is we never actually ate the food. We have rats, and we they wouldn't touch it, so we knew. Then we had a plan. Like all that was like cool in a sense, but I don't know. Again, I've already said this, but I thought that this whole Legion part was sort of the weakest aspect of the book. The Sadie going freaking psycho, insane, almost like feeling like she was, or had this idea that she was Claudia.
Yeah.
Was weird and strange. I don't know. What did you think about this whole Legion plot and with Sadie and BB?
Yeah, I'd say maybe again the weakest part of the book, but it all checks out in the end. And when the hospital scene goes down, that was really exciting. So I'm wondering at the hospital scene, did they just all of a sudden recover from the E. coli and these bugs that they had? And then he explains how they, and here's why it makes sense, right? Legion is set up to be a completely different type of killer, right? Where Mitch Rapp can understand, plan for, and get ahead of your traditional assassin. Because Mitch's, sometimes his best quality is saying, what would I do in this situation, right? So I had to get a hit on this house and this compound. How would I plan it? The problem is, he's well aware Legion is of a totally new generation, and all of their kills in the past, like the stampede, right? They bring up how they got a guy's own cattle to kill him in a stampede. They think outside the box, and they do things so unexpected that are not traditional. And so to me, I think that really makes sense for Rapp to not have to go against them, hand to hand, or not try to stop a shooter or an ambush on the house, already been done. But the whole thing with the lettuce, I thought, was really smart because that's how Legion was set up to operate. They're going to analyze the situation, find a vulnerability so out there, you won't even see what's coming. Rapp even says something like, they'll take someone at risk of a stroke and they'll replace all their medicine with sugar pills. They won't have to do anything, but they'll just wait it out and he'll die of a stroke because he's not getting the proper medicine. And we'll never know. Like you'll never see them coming type of kills. And so when the lettuce thing happened, I was okay with it. Combine that with BB Kincaid's idiosyncrasies, the way she is set up to be this complete OCD maniac and has this amazing memory, it all made sense to me that she would be able to interpret a strange lady standing at the lettuce that I've never seen shop here before. Something's out of the ordinary, heightened alert. And that BB Kincaid is not out of the blue, like you said. And actually, Chris, I think there's some trivia here. She was in the first ever scene Kyle wrote for the series. The opening of Survivor,
right?
Right.
In Istanbul. Yeah.
She's tracking somebody, I think, along with Scott Coleman on the streets. She might have been in the very first sentence Kyle ever wrote in the series, in fact. So,
they're tracking one of the assets, right?
Yeah. So having her around and doing BB things makes sense to me. And by the way, here's a little description of her. B.B. Kincaid was yet another misfit, a former FBI agent with an honest-to-God photographic memory that, combined with the fact that she was overweight, middle-aged, and blessed with extraordinarily unmemorable features, had made her the best surveillance operative in the business. The problem? Her inability to forget made it increasingly difficult for her to differentiate recent memories from distant ones, and that was driving her slowly insane. Gotta love B.B. Kincaid.
Yeah, we say quirky, but it's a bag of misfits. Like Kyle has these characters that are just a bag of misfits, and I like it. That's why I like what Enemy of the State. Where like you bring together all these characters of these misfit toys, misfit assassins, and
Donatello, baby.
Together. Yeah, that's where like he sort of changes Donatello a little bit into this like quirky character. Yeah. So Sadie, we saw her before very briefly in Total Power, right? She was like one of the two who go into the house and ultimately, help Mitch get one of the killers, right? Who are going to take out one of the units. From that scene, I should have went back and read her description. I didn't get the sense that she was this like schizophrenic crazy,
right?
But now, like Kyle has given her and Mitch knows that she's fucking insane. I don't know. What did you think of Sadie?
Okay. Sadie's bizarre, and we know it's a Kyleism. He wants to write the quirky characters. And I'm actually really, really glad this happens because it almost saves that Total Power scene, which I thought was one of the most...
You were down on.
I thought it was ridiculous, yeah. I thought that scene was just so ridiculous. But looking back and now knowing that was Sadie Hansen, it makes so much more sense.
It makes more sense. Yeah, no, it does. It does. Yeah.
Right. And even says she was critical in, resolving a devastating attack on America's power grid. So another reference to a prior book. And this backstory enhances that reference, or what happened. I guess it's this flash forward enhances what happened back then. But yeah, listen to this. Sadie is described, and just again, Kyle's writing. This is really, really, colorful language here. Sadie was a young, beautiful psychopath who also suffered from manic depression, possibly a touch of Asperger's, and a compulsion for shoplifting. To throw that in the same sentence. Asperger's, manic depression, and a compulsion for shoplifting. On the other hand, she also had the best situational awareness rap had ever seen, and seemed impervious to fear or panic, but more in a suicidal way than a courageous one. Like, Kyle, come on, man.
I mean, she's the perfect character for this job, being willing to be used as bait. I just thought it was at times it was hilarious, just this idea, especially like George, like fucking George Goodell. What a treasure.
Oh, yeah.
Nails it, starting to blend her into essentially like you think like he's reading it as if she is Claudia, right?
Yeah.
And because I guess if you were reading this just yourself, like maybe you don't fully embrace this idea that she believes at the end that she is Claudia.
Oh, yeah.
And it's slowly slipping as it goes further and further, and she is psychopathic, schizophrenic, insane. And I guess I was laughing so much at the scenes, like that maybe like it was just like this is so outrageous, so crazy. But yeah, no, I did in the end enjoy it. I thought it was funny. Like it was a nice little piece to the story. I don't know. I just felt like Legion. Well, you brought up a good point that the fact that there's new age, different killer, Rap's going to have to treat it differently, and I think that makes sense to why we saw for the second half of this book, or second 2/3 of this book, Rap and Kennedy have to operate in new ways, and
yes.
we're essentially seeing them solve their problems, unlike we have seen them in previous books. So,
and it's really funny because when we found out that Legion operates that way, and they kind of have to have some surveillance on this house, I actually thought of B.B. Kincaid before she was even brought up.
Really?
I was like,
that's funny.
If you're going to have to watch out for an assassin who's going to come get you and you're putting bait out there, you want B.B. Kincaid watching. And I had thought of her. I don't remember how much in advance. And then when she came in, I was like, my mind got there. So Kyle was tapping into something with that. Yeah, and Sadie's descent into madness. I was just thinking, like, those scenes where she wants to sleep with Rap, and all those conversations, just, they're really, really strange. And it does make sense that she would become Claudia and then pull the knife on Rap in that fight. And even though she's a trained assassin, she could attack Rap with the knife in a tactical way, but she doesn't. She approaches him as if she's Claudia, like just having a domestic argument with him. She doesn't even fully charge him with the knife. She kind of walks up to him with the knife. She's almost dropping who she is. And it's kind of like Homeland, which, you know, maybe is a trope of this crazy woman with these problems, but it makes you feel like when you're fighting someone like Legion, you might need that. You might need someone who's outside of the box, who's doing, thinking, acting differently than a regular trained assassin would. And so Rap, BB, and Sadie in this house is bizarre. But again, it's you got to adapt and you got to think of different, unique ways to read the battlefield and respond. And that's quite a team Rap and Kennedy assembled there.
Definitely.
One other thing about Legion, and maybe this was a letdown. Did you feel they even needed to have 3 people? Like Nazreen and Yasmin, I guess they were like intelligence or like the eye in the sky. And Siraz, the like operations person. Did you really need that triangle? It just felt a little random.
Yeah, I felt like they weren't, them as a trilogy wasn't used that well. Agreed. In order to justify the fact that Legion needed to be this trifecta of women. In the beginning, it was like, oh, this is a cool concept. I thought each of them were assassins
and gonna play a role.
It wasn't explained until later that, you know, the 2 never left their computers or wherever they were, and that only one of them actually did the wet work. Yeah, it just lent to, if it was used more, or if they actually played more of a role instead of this, you know, almost like Rap ends up using them as pawns, or he pawns the one off because that's why they agree to, you know, ultimately take. It's almost like a MacGuffin, right? A means to an end to ultimately get her to flip. If she's a solo person by herself, maybe she wouldn't flip. She would just, you know, be resigned to die. But the fact that it's a triumvirate, that all 3 of them need to, you know, the other 2 are like, oh, no, we're definitely going to take it because we want you to live type thing. You know, maybe that's where it comes in. But yeah, I would agree with you that it made it a little bit complicated and a little bit unnecessary.
Yeah, the one time that redeemed itself, which also had this like creepy factor, was when they were planning how they might have to use Anna if it should come to it. Like, yeah. The other 2, I think, could do that kind of stuff while she was on the ground watching Rap, Syrah. The other 2 could be like tracking people, and they actually do take Amala's phone, you know, Anna's friend, and put spyware on it, and they're listening to her conversation. So that was the one time it was kind of redeemed, like, okay, maybe this 3-person model is working because you need the ops people, the surveillance people, the spy people. And, you know, so maybe that made sense. I just feel like they could have been used a little bit more to figure out why they have to be the team of 3. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
One of those areas, there was a little meat left on the bone that we could have gotten, you could have fleshed out.
This book needed like 50 more pages. And it would have easily been in my top, you know, approaching top 5.
I think those 50 pages could have come at very smart, like, times, like surgical, like insert here. We talked about Guatemala. Now we're talking about Legion, wanting to know what the other 2 girls in Legion are doing. And then
some more Nick Ward.
Some more Nick Ward talking with Kennedy. And, dude, some more of that Joe Maslick with the sniper scene. That was
yeah, that
awesome.
was a funny scene. We got to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was, on so many levels. It was super cool because it was badass, but then it was also just being smart, because that's how Rap and Kennedy often win. They're smarter than their opponent. And that plan by Rap, which actually pissed off Kennedy, because again, she wants to be diplomatic. She's trying to build a truce.
Yes.
A truce. She says, Mitch, you literally just reignited the war when we were kind of settling in or trying to get towards détente. you just gave Anthony Cook a reason to come back at you. And Rap's like, I don't give a fuck. I want him scared. I want him cowering. I want him in the corner so that he has no chance of ever having a political life again. If I can't kill him, I want to destroy him. And I thought that was so smart.
So I guess there's two things I want to wrap up with here that we haven't touched about at all. One is like sort of minor, the other one's bigger. The minor one is we haven't talked about Darren Hargrave at all. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on him. And then the second one is our other trifecta of Rap, Claudia, and Anna.
Right.
And we have yet to sort of discuss their dynamic, how this has affected them going forward. You mentioned the passage at the end, they can all go home safely. You know, what do we think about the three of them as a unit? Do you want to talk about either of those, or are you good?
Yeah, I think we have to do a lengthy discussion on Claudia and Anna being perhaps the most important part of this book. So I think that's going to take some time. So just to wrap up the Darren Hargrave stuff, kind of wrap up the Cooks in the White House situation. I'm kind of glad he faded. I think he came on so strong, and rightfully so.
Interesting.
I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
He came on so strong. And then what's telling is what Catherine said. This is how politics works. You, Anthony, let Darren whip you up into a frenzy. He got off on you and your love fest together. He got off on having all this access to you, you beefing up security. He got all the budget he wanted. He made the CIA he wanted. He got all the power. But then he burned you. So I like that he kind of disappeared into the shadows, because he burned Anthony Cook. He made him go down this rabbit hole of paranoia. He essentially got off on it. He accumulated and took over the CIA with it. And then, as Catherine says, he just left you to fucking stand there with your pants down. I thought that was really telling when she said that to him.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted one chapter, him in his mind. I wanted to settle the score about what he truly wanted from, it's sort of hinted at that they had this relationship going on. I thought it would have been interesting to see if we could maybe it's after one of the blunders or whatever, after he captures Joe Maslick, we have an internal conversation with him or with an aide where we're discussing his true motives. I mean, I guess we sort of know and it's inferred his true motives, but I don't know. I wondered a little bit more. I felt like, maybe if we had a couple more chapters, we would have gotten him and from his own perspective, that fleshed out a little bit more. But I would agree with you that it made complete sense that he would, sort of fade into the background and we would not see him anymore. Not in the end a super important character, but definitely an interesting one. So, yeah. I think when it comes to, Rap, Claudia, and Anna, I like the dynamic that we got. We got a little bit more of each of them in this book. It's been slowly building. Kyle likes to play in this realm. I like that we sort of talked about in part one, this conversation between Rap and Claudia about how, whose fault is it that they're in the situation. And we've sort of settled the score, the fact that they both sort of have signed up for this together. And that's the only way that they can truly go forward, is to understand that they work way better as a team than they will ever work separately. I think you see that in the end. Ultimately, Claudia's not the one who puts herself out as a pawn, but Claudia is instrumental in sort of setting this up, and obviously helps Rap throughout the entire book. And I also like the Rap father dynamic. I hope that continues. I hope Anna stays. Doesn't take the route of a Tommy. We find out Tommy's in college now. I like this, fatherly dynamic, and it helps Mitch grow, and we see Anna grow, and we see this, family come together more.
Dude, absolutely want to pick up on that family dynamic and this deep emotional moment when Claudia tells Mitch he's been a great father to Anna. She says it. She puts it out there. Because that's a huge part, I would say, of Rap's internal conflict for a long time. is how he's affecting Claudia and Anna and their safety, but also how he almost doesn't feel sufficient to be that person, and he stumbles and doesn't know what to say and is always struggling with how he deals with Anna. And I've loved Kyle playing that out. And it all really comes to a head here where Claudia can validate everything he's done. And I think that quote is really going to allow him to internalize it and feel like he's worthy and he's a dad. Like Mitch is getting to be a dad that he never was ever since his unborn baby died with Anna in the explosion. So I actually want to do justice to this. There's a really lengthy, what I would call a soliloquy when Claudia says this. And I found it so powerful. I'm a little disappointed we waited this long to talk about Claudia because she's such a main important person and Anna. But I think I want to make up for that with a reading here, if you don't mind.
There's a lot in this book. So like, if we're not spending enough time on each thing, it's just, there is a lot jam-packed in such a short book.
Oh, absolutely. But listen to this. This is Claudia's soliloquy, and a few times where she just has to sit down Mitch and tell him what's going on. Like mansplaining. There's a few times Claudia's just got to womansplain things to Mitch, and they're often really brilliant. They're brilliant. and if we said Vince had a woman problem, like writing his female characters, I think Kyle has proven that he's more than up to the task with some of the dialogue and the words he's putting into his female characters. And this, to me, is the height of it, what Claudia says here. Quote, "I have some things to say, Mitch, and I need you to let me say them without interrupting." He nodded silently. "I'm as good as dead, Mitch. Even if I stay here, Legion will eventually get to me. Maybe it will take a year, maybe it will take 10, or maybe they're excavating beneath us right now, so the next time it rains, I'll die in a mudslide. And I know you'd do anything to protect me. But even you can't kill what you can't see. Second, I know you blame yourself for this, but you shouldn't. Every day I've woken up after what happened to your wife. Every one of those days has been a gift. I finally found the love of my life in you, and I've gotten to spend time with Anna that I didn't deserve. Now, on to more practical things. The good news is that there's never any collateral damage in Legion's operations, so you and Anna are safe. The problem is that while we still might not have proof solid enough for Irene, we both know that the Cooks are behind this. We also know they aren't going to let it go. Their security will never be perfect, so they know they'll never be safe until you're dead. If something happened to me, I decided to leave Anna with you. You've become such a good father, and you need something to keep you busy in your old age. The truth is, you need her as much as she needs you."
Yeah, that was great.
Dude. Oh, I love that.
That was really great. Again, another sign of the great writing in this book.
Yeah. And then that's immediately followed up by, if something does happen, they got to talk to Maggie Nash, seeing if she could be there for Anna. Woof. Can you imagine that?
That's a rough conversation to have. Because they're like, at one point, right, they're thinking about just sending Anna with her, like right now, right?
Right. They might have to.
If they have to be out there for, longer than a year. Because, there is a portion of this book where they're on the run, right? They're hiding.
A portion of the book, the entire book.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying there's a portion of the book where they are literally, they escape when the point where they escape from their Nicholas Ward's from Uganda and have to go off the grid before Rap goes to Legion. Yeah,
the elephant ride. Right. Oh, here's another good line. So I'm just still on that conversation. It's so haunting. Rap's not allowed to talk during this, so he says, "Can I speak now?" "Yes." "You're talking like you just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer." "No. People survive pancreatic cancer. No one's ever survived Legion. No one's ever survived me either. Irene's going to figure out how to get these assholes, and I'm going to put a bullet in them. And after that, I'm going to see Anthony cook off in a big state funeral." I just love that. No one's ever survived Legion. Yeah, well, no one's ever survived me either.
Badass Mitch, baby.
So Mitch. People who have any criticism about a, quote, domestic Mitch because he has to listen to Claudia, you know, like whatever, you're so wrong. You're completely wrong. It's still Mitch, and this family side of him, it enhances who he is. Because I think there's a strain of fans out there who are like, I just want to see Mitch in the field killing people. And I'm like, no, I want to see Mitch having to deal with being a father to Anna and what that looks like. Having to deal with burdening Claudia that he thinks he's responsible for her. Like, I want to see Mitch grow in those roles and the family dynamic. And I'm so glad Kyle has done it. Because I do think there are a few people out there who are like, you know, one criticism of this book could be Mitch didn't really do anything. Yeah, if you're thinking he's the Mitch of Executive Power, of Red War, yeah, of course he didn't. But it's a whole new age.
Yeah. No, well said. Well, I think we should wrap up our book discussion there. What do you think there, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's the book. I did want to bring up a few things. You know, just kind of, we went through the story, we went through the main arcs. I don't want to nitpick per se, but I have a few issues that were left unaddressed.
Okay.
And then I do have just a few questions to leave out there about how things are. The first one. Do you think Anna has been through so much trauma already? We're going to have to see the adverse effects of this. Am I right? Like Claudia mentions, we're going to have to homeschool. And then they say if she's ever seeing kids her own age or her peer group and her past comes up, we don't know what she'll say. Do you think Anna has to play a big role in the next book and just the things she's been through? It has to be addressed, I feel, no?
I think addressed in like a very small way. I don't see it going to like, we're not going to have, what was that series, Hannah, where, you know, the father trains her daughter to be a CIA assassin. I don't think we're going down that route. Or having her, you know, act out in any sort of way. I mean, I could see like small scenes where she is acting out and then it has to be explained away with the fact that she's been through this much. But yeah, I don't see it being too big of a part.
Okay.
In the story going forward.
Well, let me ask you
this. I'm thinking sort of realistically in what I think we will see.
Okay, I got you. Now, kind of the opposite question. I was looking for a little bit more action or places you could have upped the ante a little bit. There were stakes in this book, and big personal stakes for Mitch and the people we love. But to up the ante a little bit, give the book a little bit more urgency, would you have liked to see Legion be more aggressive towards Anna? Because they do say she's the weak spot if we need to use her. They do tap Amala's phone, which is kind of creepy in like this background sense. But how would you have felt if she was taken? Or they did break her arm? Or do you think there was an opportunity there to really up the ante and the urgency of this book and kick into gear some immediate action that we would have needed?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting like plot that Kyle sort of left on the floor that I would have been intrigued to see.
I don't want to see her get taken, right?
Yes.
That would have been insane, but just something to up the game.
Yeah, you would have had to seen Mitch in this mode where he has to get, you know, we saw him when he had to get Irene back, you know, but now it's Anna, you know,
exactly.
It's like completely different. That would have been interesting to see. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Like protect and
but
defend.
But he does comment on it and then ultimately decides like, oh no, that's even too far for us, type thing. But again, you know, that could have been, I guess what I wanted more, if you're asking what I wanted more with the play up of, to add in more action, the back and forth between Legion, I could have thought could have lasted another couple chapters. You know, it didn't have to be, there could have been multiple times where either Rap foils them or Rap doesn't catch them and then but I guess ultimately that doesn't lead to what Kyle ends up doing where Rap gets the best of them and they again have no idea who the hell he is. They just think he's this guy who's married to Claudia who happens to be this former assassin's girlfriend. The fact that like, all right, why don't we look for a little bit further into who this guy is?
Yes. He's
dating the former wife of Louis Gould, who was also a crazy assassin. Maybe
right.
This guy, you know, do former wives of assassins marry, you know, Joe Schmoes? Like, is that a thing? You know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith style? Like, you know.
Legion kind of mentioned it, right? They're like, "Oh, let's look into this guy. That's a little interesting. Who is he? He was in the army or something."
They say he's definitely all right, and as it's going forward, like, oh no, he was definitely in the CIA.
True, they do say that.
All right, so
but follow up on that. Lead it somewhere.
Again, you've laid it out perfectly. I completely forgot about it. The fact that the separation of power happened, and they would have easily been able to look up his photo and figure out who he was.
Yep.
So,
facial recognition. I mean, it was put out there, his face, and AI and tech that Legion would have access to can, in a heartbeat, match those up and figure that out. Anyway. But yeah, like Legion could have followed up more on Amala's phone being tapped. They could have gotten some key piece of insight from that ended up playing a role. They could have looked into his past. They suspect he's CIA. Well, the second you search this guy's face in anything related to a CIA database, it's going to lead you somewhere. And like little things like that were just kind of left dangling. So while we're on it, tracking emails, this dossier that they made, all the things Legion can do, Bitcoin transfers. Where is Marcus Dumont? He could track any and all of this. And where's Stephen Rapp? If it's Bitcoin, Stephen Rapp is both a geeky tech nerd and a multi-billionaire. He's got to be dealing with cryptocurrency. If you're going to name drop a bunch of people, make it Marcus. Make it Marcus.
I've always said that Steven's been way underutilized in these stories.
Agreed.
Like, he's such an interesting, compelling character, and he's only actually been in a couple, like, maybe 4 chapters of this entire series. Mentioned, I think, in every book, but physically only in... Whenever... is it in the same time when Irene gets to the same book when Irene gets taken? He shows up, and he's there when they attack the house, right?
I think so. Yeah, he was actually physically in a few chapters. I think that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the fact that Marcus even mentioned in this book?
He might have gotten the most shallow, like in passing mention, but no, he's a ghost. Was he? He was in the last one, so he's at the CIA. He's still working for Kennedy, or was as of Enemy at the Gates. He got to do at least a minor role there. Why not have him back in the story?
There's all these scenes or all these references to the fact that both Hargrave and the head of the Secret Service are pillaging all the rank and file employees of any connection with Irene and Rapp.
Oh.
So therefore, they would have known that Marcus was loyal to them.
They threw him out. So
he would have got thrown out. So therefore, he should be in Uganda, or he should be helping them. The fact that he's at the top of the list, beside, like, right underneath Scott, in terms of, all right, this guy at the CIA was loyal to Mitch and Irene. We're firing him first, or we're sending him somewhere, and then he would have left of his own volition and gone to work for Irene.
Irene would have taken him right to Nicholas Ward and said, "Make this your number one tech guy. Everything you do for your companies,
he's
your man.
your CIT." Yeah,
Why haven't we seen that?
I don't know.
He's got to be working for Nicholas Ward, though, right? He's got to be.
That's a question. We got to ask Kyle. Where was Marcus?
It could be like a values proposition thing. Like people hate like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whatever. It could be like Marcus is of this ilk that he'll never work for those guys, like the tech gurus. He just has like a different philosophy of approaching tech and the modern age than where a lot of these autocratic leaders of multi-billion-dollar companies are going. So maybe there's a philosophical falling out where he wouldn't work for Nicholas, but Irene would have to stick with him. Like, and when they got to trace phones and stuff or trace these emails, like, it kept being written off that, oh, these are untraceable emails. Okay. Like, what is this, Hillary Clinton's hard drive? Like, get Marcus on it.
Yeah. No, I know. Because at the same time, you have this character who has been shown to be able to do this stuff, but then you say that no one can do this stuff, so it just doesn't jive. So
yeah. And where's Fred Mason? Right? Fred Mason for president. I'm making those buttons still, so he's got to come back.
Didn't need any exfils. They didn't need any exfils. He should have been the pilot of that plane
that took Sadie.
That dropped the bomb. No,
Oh,
or the pilot of the plane that took Sadie. But again, those were Nicholas Ward's people. Yeah, I feel like he would have just been on Nicholas Ward's payroll at this point. So
yeah. You know, since you mentioned the Purge, the Great Purge, another little funny detail, not funny, but a very telling detail by Kyle that could absolutely be in a storyline down the road. When you're getting rid of and purging people from both government positions, intelligence positions, and security positions like the Secret Service, and you're having turnover that fast, you're bound to be letting in some sketchy people. Everyone who works for Ward Security in the Secret Service has a foreign accent.
right.
That might be the seeds of something to come because, man, you can't just overhaul agencies like that and completely get rid of people. You don't know who you're replacing them with, especially if you're doing things that quickly.
Very true.
Yeah. There might be some infiltration going on, like major plants. This could be some illegals, planted for the long term.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, illegals not in a migration sense, but in like a Soviet Union, planting sleeper agent.
Yeah.
sense.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah.
All right. Did I have any other off the cuff questions like that? Oh, I got one. Have you ever ridden an elephant?
No, I have not.
Have you ever gone sledding down sand dunes?
No, I have not.
And well, maybe we'll have to do that. Maybe it'll be a business expense. You know, that's what I'm going to ask Kyle. Has Kyle ever ridden an elephant or gone sledding down sand dunes?
He's got to in order to like put those in there, have firsthand experience, right?
Final thing, is Joe Maslick underappreciated in the Mitch Rapp pantheon of heroes? He's the underdog, man.
Maz had that falling out with Rapp, right? With when he fucked up the one op in Egypt or
Right.
or Morocco.
Morocco, where he froze. Exactly. I think that op is mentioned. Isn't there a callback when someone's okay? When Joe Maslick is told to do the sniper thing,
they say he gave him a bag of money and said you have to be in charge of this brothel.
Go buy a brothel.
It was
in Morocco.
Yeah, it was related to that op, I think.
That could be a deep cut. Yeah, that could have been a deep cut. But yeah, so he had a little falling out with Mitch. He kind of froze. He never really wanted a leadership position, but he's still living in Manassas. So he's loyal, faithful. He's a friend. He does the sniper thing, willing to get himself arrested. And when he flips off that drone and then he's eating the burger, when the guys surround him with assault weapons, just he's a class act. And then he takes Dr. Hornig to make sure that she can't be used by the cooks to interrogate Rapp. Joe Maslick, man, underappreciated. He's a great character.
I'm just looking at your notes here. I saw that I forgot this was a funny line that Kyle put. But Sadie is known as Victoria's secret agent.
Yes.
The Victoria's secret agent. That was pretty funny.
And the funny thing is, both Irene say that, I think, at one point, and then Claudia uses that to like poke at Mitch. She's actually a little suspicious if, part of the act is if it's got to really look like Claudia. Do they have to sleep together to make that look real? Mitch was faithful, but Claudia definitely, she asked questions. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Mitch says something like she looked good today, or like I don't know. I forgot the exact line.
He was toying
drops
with
a
Claudia.
line to get Claudia.
Yeah, that was, we get a rise out of her. Yeah, that was pretty good. Since we're just doing like cool little tidbits, here's another one. I loved how Scott was the go-between, taping the two sat phones together and putting them in a cooler so that Mitch and Irene could talk to each other.
Yeah, that was a cool little trick that I hadn't thought of before. Yeah, no, there's a lot of little things in this book that I appreciated that I never sort of thought about before, or again with the callbacks that I really appreciated. Yeah, no, I'll say it again. The writing in this book was very good.
Not only the writing, George Goodell is fantastic. He not only has to do Sadie, which is like a fake Claudia, but has to be really close to Claudia, but you have to know it's Sadie, not Claudia. He's brilliant there. And then perhaps my favorite, quickly becoming one of my favorite George Goodell voiced characters every time he does Anna. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so sassy and snappy, and she's running a mile a minute. and Claudia has to cut her off and tell her to, go do her chores. But every time George Goodell speaks as Anna, I think it's delightful. Just the cadence, he's like got this da-da, da-da, da. He's just like nailing exactly how this kid would just spew everything that comes to mind. Just the train of thought, seeing Mitch getting so excited. Oh, I'm having a great time with Anna these last few books with George.
Yeah, no, George killed it. George, he's not, keep coming, George.
Keep it coming. All right. Well, what if you say we take the win, call this a successful episode, and get to the scorecard now?
Let's do it, baby.
Take the win. I liked how Claudia was arguing that with Mitch. Don't go after the cook. Just take the win.
Take the win.
Take the win. There's our episode title.
Take the win.
Advice. I think it was Claudia. Was it Claudia or Irene? I think it was Claudia. When she was woman-splaining.
I would believe either of them saying it. Yeah.
They're both woman-splaining.
Yeah. I don't think you can say that, Mike.
All right, am I getting canceled? All right, I'll take that back.
We've been canceled a long time ago.
I'm saying that because Mitch needs some splaining. Mitch needs that voice in his head.
No, I know. It's fine. I'm just joking.
All right, well, let's break it down. We got 50 points to give out to Oath of Loyalty. What are you doing for action and plot?
So, for action, this is tough because I got to knock it for not having a lot of action, but the action we got, I really liked. The first two scenes, the two escapes, one of them is my favorite part of the book. And then the little bit of Legion action, the little bit of action with down in Guatemala. I thought that scene was very cool. I don't know. I guess I'll settle at an 8.
Okay. I'll agree with you. The action we got was amazing. Rap escaping Manassas, the shootout in the house in South Africa, the Guatemala scenes. Joe Maslick with the sniper. It was quick. It wasn't really action, but getting the president rushed off stage. That stuff was just a whole lot of fun. And I will even consider the final scene action because you're on the edge of your seat when Rap is going into the White House. We honestly didn't even cover Rap and Cook talking in the White House. That was pretty cool, by the way, how he was escorted in, all this surveillance and all this, security detection, and then he gets to sit down with Cook. I was glad it culminated in that sit down.
Yeah, and he gets locked up, and they glue the handcuffs like together because they're so afraid of him. I don't know. That was I can't believe there's so much in this book. We didn't even get a touch on everything.
Kyle thought of everything. Because all that though, it wasn't spread out the action too great. What was good in the very beginning was off the charts amazing, but I have to go 7. I have to go just a little lower on action. There wasn't enough in the last half.
All right. What do you got for plot, Mike?
I really liked it. I really loved the complexities of it. It all felt really real. Each character played their role. I'm going to a 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the action suffered, the plot carried it for me.
Yeah, the plot was really good. I'm going to dig it on sort of 2 things. The Legion thing, I don't know. And even talking through, I thought maybe we would talk through it and you would be able to sell it to me, but I'm still a little bit hung up on it. Didn't quite buy that it needed to be there, or if it is going to be there, it needed to be a little bit more fleshed out. And I think that's where the whole brevity of the book, that's probably the one area where if I had to pick, besides adding a chapter here or there just to fill out some other things, make it a longer book. But if we got one more sort of section with Legion and throwing in some action, really could have elevated it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little bit below you. I'm going to go an 8.
Okay. It's so incredible you say that, because if you literally had one more scene of Legion doing something of consequence that involved all 3 of them. And it involved some actual action or drama, conflict or clash, and you put that at the 3/4 mark of the book or the 2/3 mark of the book, this would almost be a perfect book. It would come so close. But it was just lacking. It really would. In a few key areas, and unfortunately those key areas just really sunk. Yeah, anyway. And because of that, I would have said 5 on buy-in, but I've got to go to 4. I think those little miscues or where you lost out, I want to say it was a 5 because I was bought into the story. Edge of my seat. It's amazing. A book with so little action was keeping me on the edge of my seat with, who's going to do what, where is this headed? But I got to give it a 4. It didn't have that final edge, that final push that I was looking for.
But I will say it's a solid 4 in the sense that it kept me on my toes the entire book. I thought the first part again wrapped up Enemy of the Gates perfectly. Did exactly what I wanted to do. Didn't gloss over it at all. Well executed. Yeah, but again, it's sort of like we're not picking nits, but we're one thing is leading to the another
right.
to have to ding it there,
spiraling. Yeah, and maybe this has happened so many times in the rap series, so I'm not too caught off guard by it. But it's a tale of two books. I mean, if we were doing the scorecard,
it almost is another one.
It's another one. Like what was it? Enemy of the State. We said the same thing. If we were doing the scorecard on chapters 1 through 20-ish, Chris, I'm not kidding. I would give it a perfect 50. I'm 100% not kidding. If this were half a book, I would probably give this a perfect score. That's how much I loved it. The same thing I would have said for the first half of Enemy of the State. I mean, it's just over and over again, we need the book to be a complete unit. And I don't know if that's an editing issue. I don't know. But...
Or going back to our least favorite book, Executive Power, right? That's probably the clearest example of this 2-book story where we get one section that has literally almost nothing to do with the second half of the book.
Exactly.
This one at least has like it leads into it, but yeah.
Maybe, and this is just again, today is the day of irresponsible speculation. Kyle's method where he has a really super big outline and he kind of says what his chapters are going to do.
Fill it in.
Yeah, instead of being he's the planner, not the pantser kind of thing as a writer. Does that maybe suffer here where some loose ends get lost that you don't necessarily go back to because you're thinking of like a chapter or a chunk of chapters as like this little standalone? You kind of lose the cohesive whole of someone who's just like a pantser writing as it comes. You have to connect it to what you just wrote. It has to kind of flow and get fleshed out. I feel like sometimes the chapters are just a little too disparate, hanging out on their own, that I'm lacking this cohesion. And that might have happened at the halfway point of this book for me. So speculation there that it's something with Kyle's style or editing process. I don't know, but little tiny things, if tightened up, could make this a perfect book.
All right, what about the bad guys?
Yeah, what do you say? Bad guys, good guys.
So, taking the entirety of the cooks, right? Because they're our main bad guys. Let's be honest. Legion is not our main bad guy. So, the cooks were a really good villain. And the jury was kind of out on them. We were. I remember talking at the end of Enemy. We like couldn't like give a complete score on them, right? Like,
you're right.
We didn't quite know what was going to happen, and now I think that like they're pretty freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued to see where it goes because now that you've sort of laid out the ending to me a little bit better, and now I kind of understand. I can kind of see, or at least I hopefully see where the story was going. I'm very intrigued by them. I thought the other like minor villains that we sort of get interactions with, the Guatemalans and the sort of ancillary villains were interesting. So, I'd go a solid 4.5.
Nice. If this were just the cooks and Darren Hargraves, I'm going 5 all day. Yeah, at the end of Enemy, the jury was out, on the cooks, who they were going to be. Would they rise to the level of your Hank Clarks and whatnot? I think very clearly the answer is yes.
Yes.
I think they would make the top 3 of villains in the Mitch Rapp series for sure. But unfortunately, the Legion stuff pulls it down. Outside of the Cooks and Hargraves, there's no one else to hate. Legion didn't end up hating. So I just went with a 4. I just had to balance that one out with a 4. But I think you and I are on the same page with the good guys. Everybody from Rapp to Irene to Claudia to Scott Coleman to Joe Maslick firing on all cylinders. That's a 5 out of 5 for the good guys.
Yeah, and this was a real, Mitch and Irene book. So when generally we talk about the good guys, we're talking about like the ancillary characters, not Mitch. It's kind of hard to like put him aside in this book with how central. I mean, he's central in every book, but like here in a sense, he's even more central. And then Irene plays an even bigger role. Scott coming in, playing a huge role. And then Claudia, seeing Claudia. And then also you throw in a BB Kincaid and Sadie.
Yeah.
Good guys got to be a 5.
Yeah. I think if it was more Sadie and BB Kincaid heavy, like you kind of lessened Irene and Claudia's role and you increase the time.
Then maybe you knock it down.
Then I knock it down. Right. Then I might be at a 4, but they were good and I'm glad it was limited. They were just like a fourth of the book kind of thing. So I'm sticking with the 5.
Yep.
Setting, what'd you think of, the South Africa house, the Uganda compound? I loved it. What are you going for setting?
I think I'm going to go 4 here. I like that we go all over the place. It's never been Kyle's style to give us super long descriptions of setting, kind of like what Brad does with his settings. But I thought it was cool, hopping all over the place. The description of them getting out of Uganda, going through Africa on the elephant ride, on the ski in the sand, that was cool. It was pretty solid. It was a solid 4.
Yeah, I was toying with a 4.5. And then a little detail came to me, which made me push it to a 5. And dude, I don't know how we didn't bring this up. At the South Africa house, you feel like you're in disarray with all the construction and the utilities, and you got to have this contractor come and that contractor come. Sadie is BB is scrubbing the grout. She needs perfect, pattern lines matching up at 90-degree angles. I felt like that home was so real to me. And then you put it in the fight scene and the color-coded walls based on what material the wall is made to know if it's bullet resistant or not, like which wall is safe to hide behind, which isn't. And then the island. I literally know where the pots and pans are in the island because the Le Creuset pans, they're on the right side of the island. So that's why the bullets can't get to the guy behind, because it's like a barrier. But if you draw them out to the left side of the island, it's just plywood or particle board. You could shoot them through it. And then Mitch zooms across the top of the island, swings over, gets the headshot. I was there. I was literally in that house at that scene. So I'm going 5 out of 5 on setting. That plus the Uganda compound. We got a few little notes about the architecture of this really cool house. It's kind of like, I could see that's where an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos would live. And to watch Kennedy get to be there living, using the house. And then Anna wants to go get one of Mr. Ward's root beers. Like, oh, I was transported. I was there and having so much fun with it. 5 out of 5. Rant over.
All right, you're causing me. I'm gonna bump it up to a 4.5.
Hey, there we go.
All right, we gotta judge a book by the cover now, man.
We gotta judge the cover by the book.
We only got one. We did I think a whole episode on the cover reveal, and we were super high on the cover, and I am still super high on the cover.
I agree.
I'm giving it a 5.
I think the cover reveal, we talked about everything we liked on the cover just from a design perspective. But this time, I'm going to judge the cover by the book, and it's even higher. This cover screams the America the Cooks are creating. It screams the America that Darren Hargraves is destroying. But it still has this edge of holding on, like a tattered flag, like the Star Spangled Banner, right? It's still waving. That flag is holding on because you got Irene playing diplomat, because you got Mitch not willing to give up, because you got Joe Maslick doing what he's doing. This cover captures all of that. The strength of the flag, but also the flag is not perfect. It is destroyed. It's got holes and tatters all over it, but it's still so damn solid and meaningful and bright. It's dark, but it's bright. It's glimmering. It's shimmering. It's a metaphor for everything that's going on in the Mitch Rapp universe, and I love it. 5 out of 5. Definitely in the top 5, probably top 3 of favorite covers ever.
I still like Enemy better.
At the Gates, Enemy at the Gates.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Man, these last 2 covers are just killing it.
Yeah, I really like the lettering that they have for the Oath of Loyalty. I don't know, like the lettering is really cool. Whatever font they chose was really nice.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, it's a really good cover, man.
It's a great cover. Great cover. 5 out of 5. What's your free space? What's the winner for you? Getting 5 out of 5. Bonus points.
I don't know how this can't be your both of ours free space, but it's got to be the callbacks, man. It's got to be bringing up, all the way back to Transfer of Power, leading to Enemy of the Gates, just getting all these little tidbits. It was just a treat. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed that. That's my winner.
100% agree. Yeah. Because I got to change it up, I'm just going to say the dialogue in general.
That's a good one.
I stand by it, even if the action and the villain didn't totally land the plane for me in the latter half of the book. The dialogue kept up throughout. By far, Kyle's best dialogue, best character writing, development of characters, moving their arc, putting them in situations and seeing how they respond. Absolutely brilliant. That soliloquy that Claudia gave about rapping a father is just everything you could want and more. Not even to mention all the tons of quotes I couldn't even have time to read from Irene and the things she said throughout the book. Claudia and Irene, their dialogue, outstanding. Best of the best I have read in the thriller genre, by far. 5 out of 5. For a total of 44 points out of 50. That's pretty high, Chris. That's pretty high.
Yeah, and we tied. I have 44 as well.
Yes.
We got there differently, but we came to the conclusion. We really like this book. I think I sort of ebb and flow when I think about it. I think that's a good thing because, one, it shows that it's causing the reader to be engaged. It's causing the reader to think about what Kyle meant, what the true intentions of the story was. Massive amounts of speculation, like where this is going forward in the future, in the series, in the immediate next book, in the next 10 books, whatever. Yeah, no, and like I said, my sort of hot take was the fact that this wasn't a book. This was just a really long epilogue. Was meant to be what it was, a hot take, and I'm going to post it on Instagram, whatever, in our group chat, see people's reactions. But I do think that it allowed for a reset. Mm-hmm. And if Kyle decides he's done with the cooks, he completely can. Like they whatever truce that they came up with, him and Tony and Mitch, Irene and Catherine, we could just leave that all behind. I don't think that's what's going to happen because knowing that Kyle mentioned this is the 3-book arc, that's definitely a question I want to talk to him about with. But it does allow for this reset, and if we want to, in the next book, Irene could just go back and Mitch could take their place up again in the government establishment, and we could just go back to having Mitch and Irene doing their thing. So yeah, I think it's a cool, nice little reset to allow Kyle to pick and choose, think about obviously he's already thought about it, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I kind of like that sort of empty speculation.
Yeah. The door's open. A reset will be refreshing, but not yet for me. I want to see Catherine Cook take advantage of this. I think she's such a well-crafted character and villain. I do not think her time has come. I think it'd be a mistake to move on and not let her steal the spotlight for a bit. But at the same time, there are options, depending on who this VP is, or if you gloss over that, depending on what the next election looks like. You could just go back to Mitch and Irene working for the CIA, doing what they do. I think I'd be a little disappointed if that happens on too tight of a timetable. I don't think this story's finished. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm not Kyle, I have no say, but I think Catherine's time has still yet to come. I think her star is still rising simply because of her willpower and her cunning. And the resignation is not going to sit pretty with her. And I don't think she's somebody who will just sit by as the choices of her husband determine her future. I think there's more there.
Yeah, no, that's what I hope for. But I do think it's an opportunity that I don't know. We don't know what Kyle's going to do. We'll have to wait another year. The whole year.
Yeah. Oh, man. A whole year. Maybe we could bug Kyle for a little couple of hints and breadcrumbs, as we like to do. Actually, speaking of Kyle, we're going to talk to him tomorrow night as of recording. We're not quite sure if you're going to hear our interview first or this episode first. So we're definitely going to have Kyle on, and we are going to spoil the book with him. So anything we brought up, any of our nitpicks, any of our questions, we're going to put to the man himself and put him in the hot seat and see what he can tell us, maybe what he can't tell us about where we're headed in a post-Anthony Cook era.
Yes, and not only that, but we have a lot of other content coming out. As I mentioned, we got a chance to sit down with Superfan Ben, the hashtag Redneck of Reason, to talk about all things Mitch Rapp, his journey from the beginning to Ode to Loyalty. So check that out. We also, keeping it coming, on the Scott Harvath podcast, we got Takedown coming next. I already started that, Mike. It's pretty good. You're gonna like it.
I'm excited for that one.
What did Joseph Abank? You're gonna like the way you look.
I guarantee
you're gonna like this. You're gonna like this book.
Men's Warehouse, my friend.
And we still have a recording of True Believer we have yet to release. We have these saved in the vault. We got to release it from the vault, Mike.
Dude, when I can find some time to sit down and edit that one amidst all the drunken wedding festivals and teaching that I've been doing, but we'll get down to editing True Believer, and hopefully might take a month or so, but Savage Son as well. That's going to all come out on No Limits, the Thriller podcast.
Keep the content coming. All right, we need to thank our patrons, our special operator Sherry F., our special agents Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. Find us on ThrillerPod.com or on Twitter and Insta @ThrillerPodcast. And as always, take the win.